Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a really fascinating mission today. We are unpacking this massive shift happening right now in the contact center space.
Yeah, it's a totally different way of thinking about things.
It really is. It's this move towards something called customer-level orchestration, and we're pulling from a huge stack of sources provided by Customer Dynamics.
Right, which includes their, broader thought leadership on engagement ecosystems, but also these incredibly detailed real-world case studies.
Yeah, specifically looking at their C3 payment and velocity platforms. So the goal here for you listening is to really figure out, what is this orchestration layer actually doing? How does it function? And where's the future of customer experience actually headed?
And it is such a critical topic right now. Because, organizations are just hitting a wall with their legacy strategies. The source material paints a very clear picture of an industry that is, frankly, in a pretty tough transition.
Well, and to really grasp why this transition is necessary, I want you to think back to, the last time you had a complex issue and you had to contact a brand.
Oh, we all know how this goes.
Right. You tried the web chat, but the bot just, it loops you back to the FAQ.
Always.
So you dial the 800 number, you navigate the phone tree, you finally get a human on the line. And what is the very first thing they ask you?
Your account number and the reason for your call.
Exactly. All that context from the web chat is just gone. You are starting completely from scratch.
Yeah, it's the defining frustration of the modern consumer, really. And what the Customer Dynamics research points out is that this friction, it's not happening because these companies don't have enough technology.
Right. They have plenty of tech.
Exactly. It's happening because of how that technology is architected. Because for the last decade, the holy grail in this space was omnichannel.
Which in practice usually just meant buying a tool for every possible communication channel, right? Like a vendor for voice, a totally different vendor for SMS.
A separate widget for web chat.
Yeah, maybe a social listening tool slapped on top.
Precisely. Organizations spent millions building out all these capabilities to, meet the customer wherever they were. But they deployed and managed them as completely isolated technology silos.
Right. They don't talk to each other.
No, not at all. The voice infrastructure sits on its own servers. It's managed by telecom engineers who are focused purely on routing calls and, minimizing hold times.
And meanwhile, the digital marketing team is running the SMS platform.
Exactly, optimizing for open rates and click-throughs. They don't care about the hold times.
So the architecture basically just reflects the company's internal org chart instead of the customer's actual journey.
That is the core problem right there.
Yeah.
Because sure, the data might eventually end up in the same CRM, but that happens after the fact.
Like an overnight sync or something?
Right, maybe it syncs overnight in a batch process. But the customer doesn't operate on a batch schedule. They operate in real time. If they get a proactive text message from marketing at 2:00 p.m. and decide to call the support line at 2:01 p.m., they expect the person answering the phone to know about the text.
We all expect that. But without a centralized real-time mechanism to connect those events, the agent is just flying blind.
Which brings us to the whole concept of customer-level orchestration. The thesis in these sources is that the next evolution isn't about adding more channels.
We have enough channels.
Right. It's about implementing an operational layer, like a central nervous system that sits above the individual channels and coordinates the journey in real time based on context, history, and business rules.
Okay, let me test that assumption, though. Because when you talk about an operational layer sitting above the channels, isn't that just a fancy way of describing a CDP, like a customer data platform? Because if all the data is going into a data lake, shouldn't that just solve the problem?
So that is a really crucial distinction to make. A CDP or a data lake is fundamentally about storage and insight. It aggregates the data so you can analyze it.
Right. Look at trends and stuff.
Exactly. But orchestration is about action. It is a deterministic engine. It doesn't just, score the fact that a customer received a text message. It actively uses that event to alter the routing logic of the PBX when that same customer dials in 30 seconds later.
Oh, wow. So it's actively managing state changes across completely different vendor environments.
Yes. It's constantly asking, based on what just happened on channel A, what is the next best action on channel B? And equally important, what action should we prevent on channel C?
Prevent. Okay, that makes me think of the current obsession with artificial intelligence right now.
Oh, definitely.
Because when you describe a system dynamically deciding the next best action across channels, My immediate thought is, isn't that exactly what generative AI agents are being sold to do?
That's what everyone is saying, yeah.
Right. Doesn't the massive leap in LLM capabilities essentially render a structured orchestration layer totally redundant? Like, can't the AI just figure out the routing dynamically?
It's a super common argument right now. But the sources from customer dynamics strongly push back on that idea. Because, look, artificial intelligence is brilliant at generating intelligence.
Yeah.
It can transcribe a call, analyze the customer's sentiment, summarize a 10-minute conversation into a 3-sentence wrap-up, and even, draft an empathetic email response.
Right. It handles all that unstructured data incredibly well.
But AI, especially generative AI, operates on probability. It predicts the most likely next word or the most appropriate response based on its training. Orchestration, on the other hand, requires deterministic, hard-coded logic.
Wait, meaning what exactly?
Meaning AI alone does not know the regulatory rules of engagement.
Give me an example of where that probabilistic approach just totally falls apart in a contact center.
Think about compliance. Suppose an AI analyzes a customer's profile and determines that the most effective way to collect a past due balance is to send an SMS text message on a Saturday morning.
Okay, sounds reasonable.
Right. Probabilistically, that might be highly accurate. It might yield the highest conversion rate. But the AI doesn't inherently know if that specific customer has legally opted in to receive automated SMS communications under TCPA regulations.
Oh, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. Yeah, if you violate that, the fines are, they're catastrophic.
Absolutely.
It's something like what? $500 to $1,500 per individual text message?
Exactly, per message. Or consider state-by-state calling curfews. The AI might suggest a phone call, but orchestration is the layer that checks the customer's zip code, checks the current time in that time zone, checks the opt-out registry, and ultimately says, no, this action is prohibited right now.
Okay, so intelligence needs direction.
Precisely. AI provides the cognitive processing, but orchestration applies the rigid, necessary business logic to execute it safely and consistently.
So essentially you need the orchestration engine to act as a governor on the AI?
Yes, that's exactly it.
So the companies extracting real value aren't just letting AI hallucinate workflows willy-nilly, they're plugging AI capabilities into a highly orchestrated framework.
That is exactly the takeaway from the research.
Let's bring this out of the theoretical, though, and look at how this mechanism actually functions in real life. Because the source material outlines a very specific use case regarding outbound payment reminders, which I think perfectly illustrates the difference between a siloed architecture and an orchestrated one.
Yeah, it's a brilliant example because it involves a very common state change. So a company sends an automated SMS reminder, something like, your bill is past due, click here to pay.
Pretty standard. Now, in a siloed environment, if the customer ignores the link in the text and instead decides to just, call the 1-800 number to argue about a charge, what actually happens technically behind the scenes?
Technically, the outbound SMS platform registers a sent event, but that information is totally trapped in its own database. Meanwhile, the telecom switch receives an inbound call. The IVR, the phone menu, it looks up the customer's phone number in the CRM, sees they have an account, and routes them to an agent.
But the IVR doesn't know why they're calling because it literally doesn't talk to the SMS platform.
Right. So the agent answers the phone blind. The customer says, hey, I got a text about my bill. The agent has to open a separate billing application, manually search the account, and try to piece together the contexts.
So slow.
Exactly. And here is where the lack of orchestration creates real operational damage. Because the systems aren't linked, the automated outbound campaign is still running.
Wait, meaning the system might text them again while they are on a phone?
Exactly. If the campaign is set up to send a follow-up email or a second text, if the bill isn't paid within an hour, and the customer is currently spending 45 minutes on hold or talking to a representative trying to resolve a dispute.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that second automated message is going to fire off.
Which just infuriates the customer because it proves the company isn't actually listening to them. It's just, algorithms firing blindly.
Exactly. Now, overlay customer-level orchestration onto that exact same hardware. The customer receives the text. They dial the number. The moment that call hits the network edge, the orchestration layer intercepts the caller ID.
Okay.
And through API webhooks, it instantly queries the outbound engagement platform and sees, oh, we literally just texted this number 3 minutes ago regarding a past due balance.
So before the phone even rings on the agent's desk, The system already has a highly probable intent for the call.
Yes. The IVR can dynamically change its prompt. So instead of, press 1 for sales, 2 for support, it can say, "Hi, I see we just messaged you about a balance. Would you like to securely pay that now? Or speak to someone about your bill?"
That is so much better. And if they choose to speak to the agent's screen populates with the entire timeline, right?
Right. They know about the text.
Yeah.
But more importantly, what happens to the outbound campaign?
I'm guessing it stops.
The orchestration layer fires an immediate state change back to the campaign manager, suppressing that specific customer record. All future automated texts or emails are paused in real time because the system recognizes an active, live interaction is occurring.
Wow. It sounds less like a conductor waving a baton and more like a universal API gateway, like a smart wiring system you install into an old house. You don't have to tear down the walls, right? You just run this intelligent wiring between the legacy systems so they can finally communicate.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it because ripping and replacing enterprise contact center infrastructure is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
And risky.
Nobody wants to do that.
No. So the trend highlighted in these sources is consolidation and integration. You keep your core platforms, but you use tools from ecosystems like Customer Dynamics to wire them together.
Let's look at how that smart wiring actually gets installed because the sources provide 2 really concrete case studies of real-world deployments.
Yeah, let's dive into those.
The first involves a regional broadband provider, and their primary challenge wasn't just customer experience, it was heavy compliance risk, specifically PCI scope.
Yes. Handling credit card payments over the phone. For an informed audience, the nightmare PCI DSS compliance is well understood.
Oh, absolutely.
If a customer is reading their credit card number aloud to an agent, that audio is likely being captured by the quality assurance recording systems, the screen recording software, and potentially even stored in temporary caches on the agent's local machine.
Which means all of those systems, the servers, the network switches, the agent's physical desktop, they all now fall under the scope of an annual PCI audit.
Which is a massive headache.
Right. If any of that gets breached, the liability is insane.
So to avoid that, companies historically use something called SIP hairpin routing.
Ah, okay.
When the customer was ready to pay, the call would be diverted out of the main contact center environment, routed over the public internet to a third-party secure payment IVR, and then bounced back to the agent once the transaction was complete.
But anytime you are bouncing live voice packets around multiple networks, you introduce latency.
Tons of latency.
Calls drop, the audio degrades. It's just a terrible experience for both the agent and the customer.
Which is exactly why the broadband provider deployed Customer Dynamics C3 payment solution. The architecture here is fascinating. They were using NICE CX Zone as their core platform and OrbiPay as their payment processor.
Okay.
And instead of relying on clunky SIP hairpinning to physically move the audio, C3 payment integrated directly into the NICE CX Zone environment at the API level.
Wait, so how does it keep the data out of the recordings if the call isn't being routed away?
It uses DTMF masking at the network edge.
DTMF, like the dial tones.
Exactly. When the agent initiates a payment, they stay on the line with the customer. The customer uses their phone keypad to enter their credit card number. But the moment those tones hit the carrier network, the orchestration layer flattens them.
It flattens the audio tones, meaning the agent just hears a generic beep, not the specific frequency of the number 4.
Exactly. The agent hears flat beeps, and the integration pushes API-level tokenization to the agent's screen. So they just see asterisks filling in the fields in real time.
That's brilliant.
The actual credit card data never traverses the enterprise firewall. It never hits the agent's desktop, and it completely bypasses the call recording infrastructure.
Because the recording just captures the flattened tones, which are mathematically useless to a hacker.
Exactly.
That fundamentally changes the risk profile of the entire contact center. You are de-scoping the legacy architecture without having to rebuild it.
And because that secure API orchestration is now in place, it becomes foundational. The organization isn't just solving for voice payments anymore. They now have a unified transaction layer. They can easily spin up SMS pay, chat pay, or even chatbot-assisted payments, all routing through that same secure, tokenized C3 payment gateway.
Man, that is the definition of future-proofing right there.
It really is.
Now, let's pivot to the second case study, because this flips the dynamic entirely. We just talked about inbound payment orchestration, but what happens when the organization is the one initiating the contact?
Right, outbound.
Yeah. The sources highlight a large Australian health, aged care, and community services provider.
Yes. Outbound engagement presents a completely different set of orchestration challenges. This provider had a massive legacy footprint built on Cisco WebEx, but they needed to manage high-volume outbound communications, things like patient reminders, shift updates for staff, community alerts.
And doing that within a healthcare framework means the compliance requirements are incredibly rigid. You can't just, dump a CSV file of phone numbers into an autodialer and hit go.
Which is largely what they were struggling with, to be honest. They had decentralized manual processes, disconnected lists, fragmented outreach across different departments, and zero unified visibility into who was being contacted, when, and on what channel. And in aged care, if you miss a critical update because of a spreadsheet error, it isn't just bad customer service. It is a critical operational failure.
Yeah, lives are literally on the line. So how did they wire up this legacy WebEx environment to fix that?
They layered a platform called Velocity over the existing Cisco infrastructure. Velocity acts as the outbound orchestration engine. It centralizes the dynamic list management. It integrates directly with their back-end databases so that the contact lists aren't static spreadsheets anymore. They are constantly updating based on real-time data.
But the key mechanism here is the suppression logic, right? How does Velocity actually ensure compliance at scale?
Mechanically, Velocity sits between the campaign manager and the actual dialing infrastructure. Before a single API call is made to initiate a text or a phone call, the orchestration layer runs a gauntlet of checks.
Okay.
It checks the global opt-out list. It checks dynamic consent flags, the CRM. It checks time-of-day routing rules.
Meaning, if a patient's file says they live in Sydney but their area code suggests otherwise, the system is cross-referencing their actual residential data, not just guessing based on the phone number.
Exactly. It prevents the infrastructure from executing non-compliant actions entirely. It orchestrates the outreach across SMS, email, and voice natively within WebEx, ensuring that the staff and patients receive a coordinated, governed experience.
Okay, so the sources report some pretty aggressive statistics from across Customer Dynamics' entire deployment footprint here. They note a 28% uplift in campaign success and a 17% reduction in average handle time for agents.
Those are massive numbers.
They are, but I have to push back on that handle time metric. Dropping handle time by nearly a fifth just by orchestrating the context assumes that the underlying data in the CRM is actually accurate.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Right, like if the CRM is full of duplicate accounts, outdated phone numbers, and messy notes, doesn't orchestration just route the wrong information faster?
That is a highly perceptive critique. And it points to a secondary benefit of this technology. You are right. If the data is garbage, the orchestration will struggle. But what organizations find is that deploying an orchestration layer actually forces data hygiene.
Wait, how so?
Because the orchestration engine relies on a single source of truth for the interaction history. When you integrate tools like E2DX, which is another customer dynamics solution that embeds this entire agent experience directly into Microsoft Dynamics, you eliminate the need for agents to alt-tab between 7 different applications.
Oh, the famous single pane of glass interface.
Exactly. When the agent is working entirely within one unified interface and the data is being automatically logged and categorized by the orchestration layer, the data quality naturally improves.
Because they aren't manually typing it in.
Right. You aren't relying on an agent to manually type a summary into a disparate billing platform and just hoping it syncs correctly to the CRM. The system handles all the state changes.
So the smart wiring doesn't just connect the house, it continually cleans the pipes.
That's a great way to put it.
I also noticed the source material briefly mentions tools designed for high-risk outbound compliance, like Safe Select.
Yes. For environments dealing with non-consented outreach, which, falls under heavy scrutiny, Safe Select utilizes human sequence selection technology.
Meaning what?
It completely removes the automated dialer from the equation. An actual human agent must manually intervene and select the sequence to initiate the call.
Okay.
So it provides absolute compliance protection against auto dialer regulations while still using the orchestration layer to queue up the right data.
Man, it is such a fascinating ecosystem. So we've covered the technical realities of C3 payment, velocity, and this a broader shift away from siloed omnichannel architectures. To summarize this for you listening, the real takeaway from these sources is that the era of simply collecting communication channels is over.
It really is.
The competitive battleground has shifted to the operational layer. It is about how intelligently you can connect a webhook from an SMS platform to a routing script in a legacy PBX so that the customer experiences one continuous conversation. The technology to fix the broken journey exists today. It just requires a fundamental shift from managing systems to orchestrating the journey.
And as we move toward that reality, it raises a larger, perhaps slightly unsettling question.
Oh,
Yeah. If this orchestration layer becomes so sophisticated that it seamlessly anticipates your needs, say the system knows your flight just landed based on app telemetry, and it automatically intercepts a proactive billing call because it knows you were likely standing at baggage claim.
okay.
At what point does proactive, highly orchestrated customer service cross the line from being helpful into the realm of creepy surveillance? Like, where exactly is the boundary of the orchestrated journey?
Man, that is an incredible point to leave on. The line between a frictionless experience and an invasive one is going to get very blurry as these systems get smarter. Definitely something for you to ponder as we watch this space evolve. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive